Hello and welcome to another episode of the William Hill Squareball podcast with myself, Dave McIntyre. It is our All-Ireland Hurling final preview, and that brings almost a tear to the eye because it does mean that we are in the home straight of this year's football and hurling All-Ireland Senior Championships after what's just been a brilliant summer, and it's been a brilliant season for us here on the Squareball pod as well. So delighted you're still continuing to tune in to us. If you're watching us on YouTube this week, make sure that if you aren't already, that you're subscribed. We've had some brilliant reactions in the last few weeks. Unsurprisingly, there was a massive engagement with the Johnny Pilkington episode. He is just beloved, clearly, not just in Offaly, but elsewhere around the country as well. So many of you got in touch with us to talk about Johnny and what he meant to you as a player inside and outside of Offaly hurling. So we really appreciated so many people on YouTube in particular getting in touch. Your comments on Spotify also mean a lot to us. You can get in touch with us there as well. Make sure you subscribe so that your feed updates automatically every week. And then get us on social media as well, at William Hill Ireland on both Instagram and Twitter. Plenty of other great sports content on there also. The vast majority of our episodes, they're in the memory bank, the archive. You can dip in and out of them whenever you want. They won't be dated in any way. Some unbelievable hurling and football guests that we've had over the last 12 months and some really fascinating conversation. This is one of the few episodes that you've really only got a few days to listen to before Tip take on Cork in that final. And it is because of that we've got some representatives from both the Premier and the Rebel County here today. In my two guests, co-host Ashling Thompson, who yourself could be in line potentially.
Hopefully.
I'm sure the Camogie players of Waterford and Galway will have something to say about it. But Cork, you could be potentially playing Tip in a few weeks' time in the All-Ireland Camogie final. You're very welcome back, Ashling.
Thank you.
And Tip legend Eoin Kelly, who himself was the subject of his very own episode of the Square Ball just a few short weeks ago. Go and have a listen. It was class. Up there with the Johnny Pilkington episode, which might well be the greatest hurling episode we've ever done. It is two-time All-Ireland winner, former All-Ireland winning captain and five-time All-Star Tip legend Eoin Kelly.
Dave, good to be back. How are you?
This is only a few weeks since you were here.
Yeah, it's true. And it was in the middle of the championship or even before the championship, I'm not sure.
And yet, so congested is the championship, so much water has gone under the bridge since.
Yeah, and I suppose we didn't think we were going to have a Tip Cork pairing back then anyway. So, look, it's something great. It's new, and hopefully it'll be a great build-up towards it.
We should be honest and tell our viewers and our listeners that we're recording this the week after the two semi-finals. So it's a Wednesday afternoon, beautiful sunshine in Dublin. Hopefully wherever you are when you're listening to this, it's something similar. So we're still kind of digesting what were two really interesting semi-finals, Ashling, and then the first ever Cork Tip All-Ireland hurling final.
It's actually fair hard to believe, like.
It is, and look, it's possible since the structure of the championship changed. And we've had this in minor, 2007. Tipperary won it. We've had it under 21, 2018. Tipperary won that game, and they weren't tipped to win that game at all down in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick. And now here we are with the senior. So something to look forward to. I think it's the colour as well that it brings, blue and gold, the whole red, the Tip Cork, I suppose, the traditional rivalry that's there, the old stories. So look, it was going to happen sometime, and here again we have an all-Munster final again for the All-Ireland.
And yet we've seen Waterford take on Limerick in the final. We've seen Limerick Cork on a couple of occasions. Year one of the backdoor system was Clare Tip, 1997. The John Lahey miss and all that in the last few seconds, and Jamesy's winner, that was another epic occasion. But that was 28 years ago. And am I right in saying the Tip have not faced a Munster team in the All-Ireland since?
No, you're right. It's been Kilkenny. Any of the All-Irelands, it's been Kilkenny. And it's actually interesting you even mentioned that game, Tip and Clare. Liam Cahill actually came on at after half time and scored a goal in that. So look, I think Tipperary's All-Irelands that they've been beaten in, and the All-Irelands that they've won, and a couple of these current players with 2 or 3 All-Irelands, it's been Kilkenny.
Or Galway.
Or no, I didn't play Galway in All-Ireland. 2001.
Yeah, 01, yeah.
We actually played Galway in the All-Ireland that day. Nick English was the manager. So look, this is something that's fresh, as we said, and I think it's going to be serious hype about it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
There's real different dynamics in the two counties. Like from a Tip point of view, I don't think anybody, even inside the county, would have predicted that heading into the final days of the championship, Tip would be one of the last two teams standing, because you didn't get out of Munster last season, didn't win a game, got a proper trimming off Cork in the league final, and obviously a couple of really difficult results in the Munster championship as well. And yet Liam Cahill has managed to turn this around in a county that is just flying now on the back of the under-20s. How far has he travelled with this group in the last 12 months?
Yeah, look, I know everyone will mention probably on the back of the under-20s, and that a couple of the under-20s are now into the team and into the squad. I think a master stroke was also keeping the older guys, the experienced guys, because the easiest thing maybe last year or even the season before was, look, we'll clean those out. But the experience, he now has the experience of 8 guys that have All-Ireland medals going into this final. And like, I know you mentioned Tipperary had a poor game down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh the first day of the championship and the league final. But if you probably took Cork away from their fixtures this season, they've been right up there with the top teams. And even for me, the first day in the league match against Galway up in Salt Hill, I know it's the first round of the league, Tipperary were convincing winners. And I don't know how many Tipperary teams go to Salt Hill in January and come away there. I think they won by 10 points plus, scored something like 325, but looked real fit, lean, looked real hungry. And I think their game against Limerick in Thurles, now it finished 2-23 each, but even you'd hear from the Limerick guys afterwards that was one of their toughest games all campaign. And that's even Cork aside.
That's true, yeah.
So it just tells you the frame of mind and the physical conditioning of this Tipperary side. And to be honest with you, they have the hard work done. They have the hard work done. And when you've that done, your confidence is there, and all you're looking
but
for
you
then.
can see that with them as well. Like, it's their confidence is going game by game, and that's why I
100%.
think they're actually dangerous going into this final, because from where they started again, they probably thought even themselves in the off season, you know, like, we're at the bottom of the pile here, and the way they've actually just gone win by win throughout the championship, had a few losses here and there, but I just think going into this final, even for Cork, like, they're going to be totally, you know, as in Cork are the raging favourites going into it, but I just think Tipperary are in a sweet spot at the moment.
Yeah,
like,
they're in a lovely position, and look, they don't fear Cork.
No, they don't.
If there's anybody they probably want to get a win over in a final, it's Cork. Like, it just gets them going, we'll say. And look, it's a novel pairing, as we said, for the final. We'll say we haven't seen it. So, but I have liked the look of Tipperary all season, and I just find with them, even watching on, just find when the ball goes into that forward line, that something is going to happen. They seem to be creating scores easy, and I think it's the form of the likes of Jason Ford and John McGrath. Having worked with them previously in the past, it's lovely to see the true players, what they are like.
They've really come to life, like
they have. And I think if you ask them, the excitement they've got of Darren McCarthy, Oisin O'Donoghue, Sam O'Farrell, like, that's lovely. And it kind of reminds me a small bit about the 09-10.
You've clearly, someone has sent you my notes, because you are just ticking every single thing off here. I want to get into about 3 or 4 different things that you brought up there in a little more detail, because they're so relevant. It's really interesting. But when I mentioned the 2 types of dynamics that are ongoing with the 2 counties, Dublin were almost being talked about as being in bonus territory. This is a free hit at Cork at the weekend, because they'd been knocked out the great Limerick team, and they got further under their new manager in his first season than anyone had predicted. Is it dangerous to start talking about Tipperary being in that position, that, no one thought Liam Cahill and this Tip team would get to a final? This is a free shot at Cork. It's bonus territory, because you don't know if or when you're ever going to be back in a final again.
So true. And I saw that in 2001. We didn't get back to a final until 2009. So I suppose the Tipperary supporters are saying we have a free shot at it. There's no pressure on them. And there's not, which is lovely. And Liam Cahill has built a team, probably, well, I mightn't say a team for the future, because there's some more younger players that
still in that middle ground.
Will need to be introduced. But if you're having a conversation, I'd say, with Ronan Maher, Noel McGrath, John McGrath, and Jason Ford, Seamus Kennedy, and these fellas, Michael Breen, they were looking at you saying, what are you on about? Not a chance. This is an All-Ireland final. We're going to keep our heads down.
They have a huge opportunity there.
Huge opportunity. We'll keep our heads down. And I do think Tipperary will perform in the final.
Was there a feeling in 01 with you that Tip hadn't won it since Babs, like in 91? So it was a 10-year gap for it without an All-Ireland, like, that you probably, if you'd been beaten by Galway that day, probably would have got over that quickly enough.
You would have had.
But there was lads who were still part, like Declan Ryan, for example.
Tommy Dunn, the captain.
They would have looked at you thinking, sure, we'll go out and have a rattle off Galway today. If we lose, like, there's always next year. Declan Ryan wasn't thinking that way.
And like, that's been a 19-year-old. That's the carefree attitude that you go in with, even though you care so much. And that's Darren McCarthy. I have to remember he's 19. Oisin O'Donoghue who's 19. So they're in a similar position to a couple of us when we were back in 01. Myself, Lara Corbett, John O'Brien, Paul Cornell were on that panel. And we probably brought that freshness even around the dressing room, just having the crack with the lads. And do you know, they were looking at us saying, these guys are just looking forward to playing the game, and then looking forward to maybe afterwards and that. But
you're the example of it, though. Didn't get back to the All-Ireland final in 8 years and didn't win it again for 9.
And that's the thing. I'm sure Liam Cahill is going to be beating this into the finals. You have no God-given right to get back to a final. And if everyone thinks this Tip team is young, like, there's a lot of experience there as well. But look, they're in that middle ground, as you said, Dave. So, you know, it's so hard to get out of Munster. And that's the thing. As I said to someone during the week, it's nearly easier to win the All-Ireland than winning the Munster Championship. And the likes of Clare and these guys, they'll tell you that. So it's such an opportunity, and to be going into it as underdogs with no pressure on them. Tip will just stay very quiet. They were lovely and quiet before the All-Ireland semi-final, and I do think they'll perform. Why? They have the experience of guys that have played in the All-Ireland finals, and knowing those guys, the character of the McGraths and Jason Ford and these lads, they'll have a quiet word with the players, and they'll really be a highly motivated dressing room. And then with Liam Cahill and Michael Bevan, this is not their first All-Ireland either. And I know it was the COVID year 2020 with Waterford, but I'm sure their motivation and their hunger is even more than the players. And when players see that, you feed off that as well. Like, so it will be very hungry Tipperary dressing room that's going to go out.
So that's the big difference between this group and 0-1. If you've been beaten in an 0-1 final, you know that come what way in 0-2, you've got the back door. If it goes badly in Munster, there ain't no back door anymore. If you start off the championship badly, you've been fecked out of Munster before the end of May.
Yeah.
In Cork, so within a puck of the ball of winning the All-Ireland last year, and the way they hurled last year under Pat Ryan, a real sense that the Cork public has reconnected with their hurlers in a way that we probably haven't seen since the 04-05 team.
That was the last.
And then when Limerick get dumped on their backside, Cork are probably already favourites coming into the All-Ireland, haven't won the league. Then they win the Munster title. Then Dublin get rid of Limerick. So what's the difference in comparison to what we just talked about? Tip, we're not calling it a free hit, we've established that, but no pressure. Whereas all on Cork now.
Well, I would say that even going by last year, I think you could still kind of question where they were at times and would they pull through. But I feel like at the moment with that Cork team, I feel like they've done definitely a lot on the psychological side of the game. You can kind of see, even I'd say probably the Limerick game down the Gaelic grounds was the only real poor performance that you could see all season. And I think just looking at them game by game, they just look like a totally different kettle of fish, even compared to last year. I feel like last year they were building, absolutely, but I feel like there's a real confidence there now, like in that Cork squad, and it's something that I've kind of never really seen before, bar, let's say that 04-05 time. It reminds you of the Cork of old, that kind of confidence, and I wouldn't say arrogance. I feel like they've stripped back the egos, actually. That was probably a big issue, I'd say, for a long time, is having too much ego over confidence. But that's the way I see them now. I feel like they've worked a lot on, off the pitch as well as they've worked on the pitch.
And how much is that down to Pat Ryan and the way he manages these players?
100%. You can't tie it down to anything else, only what he's done. And again, I can only imagine the psychologist, even the strength and conditioning coach, I know for a fact is, top notch, and just everything, their whole aura, the way they carry themselves, the way they are as a group. Like before, again, you could kind of pick the different friend groups and who'd be hanging out with who. But even Alan Connolly was interviewed after the Munster final. He said, like, they're just so close. They're like best friends now. And you can only put that down to the work that Pat Ryan has put in. Because again, we've been around them. I've seen them. I see the way they carry themselves and the way they act around the management and vice versa. And it's just real. It looks real professional at the moment. Like.
And even on that, Ashling mentioned the strength and conditioning coach. Like, I'm kind of led to believe that they would have worked a lot maybe on even getting faster.
Absolutely.
Like last year, the perception was that Cork are a fast team, which they were. But I'd say they have put in a lot of work in the off season and into the January, February, March to peak for the championship, because they're actually moving quicker. They're moving quicker, and their off the ball movement. Yeah. Blind runs. You see Tim O'Mahony, he's just ending up in the end of the move. Yeah. So like they have worked on little small things like that, and their forwards continue to work very, very hard. And I think Liam Sheedy pointed that out in some interview with Pat Horgan after some league match last year, before the last year, that their forward line have put the hand up and says, right, this is the first place.
Yeah, you can see it, and they're so unselfish. Yeah. I think that's another thing that you can really see. Like, they don't care, even the likes of Patrick Horgan, who's been there for so long, they don't care who gets on the scoreboard. No. It's all about, the best man in the right position. And again, it's something that you haven't seen for a long, long time in Cork. And to me, even last year when I was looking at them, I was like, there's something different about this squad that we've seen in the last 10 years, like, plus.
Yeah, it's interesting that from 8 to 15, they all scored at the weekend in the semi-final, bar Shane Barrett, who bizarrely one of their best scorers,
Yeah.
didn't manage to get on the score sheet. I'm sure he'll look to make up for that in the
and
final.
oftentimes you see that the guy that's quite in the semi-final, he shines in the final. Like, but it's how goal hungry they are. I think they've got something like 16 goals in the championship, 15.
Yeah, well, goals are the new currency.
Yeah, they are.
We looked at Limerick dominating the championship for the last 7 years, and they're like, we'll score 33 points today.
But I suppose
you drop back on us, that's fine. We'll poke out the ball over the bar from 80 yards.
There's a small bit of old school tactics.
17 and 6 they have.
17 and 16 is, but there's a small bit of old school tactics after coming into both Cork's play and Tipperary's play, which is actually nice to see. So what I mean by that, just getting the ball in. Like Pat Horgan, Alan Connolly and Brian Hayes predominantly stay inside. So the ball is just shifted in as quick enough.
Yeah.
That's all you ever want when you're inside.
And there's three of them.
And there's three of them. Big men can win the ball. And Alan Connolly, like, I just love looking at him because when he gets that ball, he's nearly getting it low and he's heading for goal.
Yeah, once it's in his hand, you have a big
so
job
exciting
on.
to watch.
Yeah,
it's lovely to watch. And on the other hand, then Tip, last weekend against Kilkenny, sharp puck out.
Quite similar, like,
Rhys Shelley to the full back, got it back, lurried the ball down, and John McGrath was very
that high long ball is just
won it.
chaos. Yeah.
Like John McGrath scored what 5-14 from play.
Incredible.
Jason Ford 3-14 from play. And on the flip side, I think Brian Hayes and Alan Connolly or something like 4-9 and 5-8. Or it's 4 players, 2 on each side that are just goal hungry. Like so, like. That'll be a big thing. Both sets of management team will be looking at how can we curtail goals and cut out goal chances. And Tip were good at that now at the weekend, I thought, against Kilkenny.
Brilliant.
They were, and really until the last few minutes, I don't think Kilkenny really had a real decent sight of goal. John Donnelly's was very close to obviously scoring with that pretty much the last puck of the game, and had Rob Doyle not been on the goal line to save Tip's blushes, the referee's blushes, the scorekeeper's blushes, and the GA's blushes. That's something that I know there's been a lot of talk about that incident with the scoreboard ticking on when Noel McGrath hit a wide, but what happens at the full-time whistle if John Donnelly has managed to put that beyond Rhys Shelley and Rob Doyle? The ball ends up at the back of the net, full-time whistle goes, James Owens, the referee, checks his notes, realises that Kilkenny have won the game. What happens then? You're back to the 1998 fiasco between Clare and Offaly. Realistically, you are. Everybody had the case then, and like, look, it was unfortunate that it happened, but it would have led to the two players shaking hands, sets of players getting ready for extra time. The referee says, "Actually, do you know what, lads? Kilkenny won." Yeah, it would have led to some mess. Now. It would have, and at that stage, then the referees say it's final, I suppose. Like, so once he had his notebook, and he had it at Kilkenny, if they had to score a goal, it would have been point ahead. I'd say that was it. You can't manufacture a point to keep Tip in the championship. No, you can't, so it's amazing. And it's always these little things and little moments in championships. Like if Tipperary turn around to win the championship, everyone will be talking about Robert Dial's last second clearance off the line. Like, not only would he have saved Tipperary, but saving the GA an awful headache. It would have been one of the all-time great scandals. It was unfortunate because we do know Kilkenny, and that would have probably clipped their couple of scores and got it back to level, and that because they seem to have a couple of chances. But sometimes you have to ride your luck, and Tipperary are probably maybe having that bit of luck this season. Like, well, that's what you need, especially if you're kind of an emerging team. You do need some things to go your way. Yeah. We've talked about that Cork forward line, and Ashling's obviously mentioned just the brilliance of the likes of Horgan and Brian Hayes and Alan Connolly in the half forward line as well, and the scores coming from midfield and the half back line. Ronan Marr has generally been asked to tag the biggest fetchers in the opposition teams, the Peter Duggans, Stephen Bennett's. At the weekend, he was asked to try and deal with Brian Hayes, which obviously takes him out of that 6th position. And in the first 15 minutes, Kilkenny just ran Tip ragged. Yeah. And they played 5 or 6 of these little pop passes from the wing into that central channel, and they had several players just bombing on from midfield and the half forward line. So if they're asking Ronan to mark Hayes again, and he stays inside, what do Tip do then about that centre-back position? I think Tipperary during the championship have actually filled that with Craig Morgan filled it, I think, in the Limerick game for X amount of time. They were wide open in the first quarter and at the weekend. Connolly has filled that 6th position. So I think if Tipperary continue to do what they do by Ronan Marr probably following Brian Hayes, that looks like Ronan will end up at number 2 in the full back line. But if I was Liam Cal, I think I'd be happy with that. Because not too many fellas that get past, and that's one of the reasons why Kilkenny probably didn't get many goal chances in that semi-final. So I'd be happy with Ronan there. And if Ronan puts out that fire, like Brian Hayes has been so influential, I'd say not only scoring goals, but I'd say the amount of assists that he is. The heart of that forward. He's something like 10 assists, I think, for other players. Even ball just breaking off him. Yeah, it's just what he does, even touching it down.
like for that puck out, he's influential. So even if Ronan Maher stops Brian Hayes just touching that ball down for the long puck out down the middle, well then that's another job done. So I'd probably go with what has worked. Peter Duggan, I suppose, was put to sleep against Clare. TJ didn't get too much joy on Ronan Maher. And previously even been involved under Liam Sheedy, Ronan would have been the go-to guy for the likes of the top forward. And I think Ronan is very comfortable in the full back line as he is in the half back line. But the other side of it, it does create problems maybe outside with pace. And
which Kilkenny don't really have.
No.
But bloody hell Cork do.
Cork have in abundance, and especially that guy coming through the middle, maybe Tim O'Mahony, Darragh Fitzgibbon. Could Cork put Darragh Fitzgibbon at 11 if Ronan is inside Mark and Brian Hayes? Now that causes problems because if he goes everywhere, you can't leave him loose. And if he cuts through that middle, that's where the goal chance. So there's a couple of decisions Tipperary will have to make now, but I think for me, I probably would put Ronan Maher on Brian Hayes.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of that first quarter, Ashling. It was 8 points to Kilkenny, 1 goal for Tip. Tip didn't have many attacks. John McGrath is just a cute whore. Like, the one chance he gets, there it is, top corner, and suddenly Tip are breathing again. But my sense would be that if Tip start against Cork like they started against Kilkenny, there won't be any way back.
No, I don't think so. Especially, well, if they give them, I think again, Kilkenny probably had a lot of chances to pop it over, but if the ball gets into that Cork forward line, they've only one thing on their minds, they'll be ruthless. So, I'd agree with what Owen's saying. I think containing Brian Hayes is probably half your battle, especially inside in that full forward line, because he's the epicentre of what goes on really outside of him. But then, of course, you have the problems outside with Darragh Fitz and Tim Mahoney and even Shane Barrett, even Declan Dalton going back to pitch. He's another threat because...
And the Cork backs like to follow their men.
They do,
and Tip backs then, if they're allocated to their markers, they'll follow their men as well. So what you could have you could have the 2 half forward lines coming out to the middle third.
Yes.
But that's leaving carnage inside in the full forward line, because we've seen both teams are comfortable putting that ball in quick and often. And if that ball goes into both full forward lines more than the usual, I think you're going to have a shootout either way.
Yeah, no, I do think half of why Tip started so slowly was probably a lot of it was to do with, that's the first time for a few players that they've played in Croke Park,
would be,
and again, the whole talk around Tipperary haven't been to Croke Park since 2018, it's very hard to block out things like that as a player, going in. And then when you go into Croke Park, you know yourself, it's such a daunting place to be. Even if you've played there 10, 20 times, even as a camogie player, every time you play in Croke Park, it's a completely different level. It's, everything is mental really on the day rather than the hurling side of it. So I would hope that that's why Tipperary started slowly. But I would say that if they have the same start, they mightn't have the same comeback. I don't think Cork would let them back in as easy.
There were some that kind of maybe said that Dublin were a little naive and they went man for man the way they did on Limerick. Even with a man down, having lost Chris Crummy, they went man for man against Limerick. And that Niall Callaghan, he's just so honest. As a dub, we just love him. Yeah. He's just different gravy with what he's brought to Nafina and to Dublin in the last few months. But he was just so honest. He just said, well, look, we could have come up here and gone zonal and maybe lost by 7-8 points. But there's a 0 chance of winning the game. We came up here today and we said we're going to go toe-to-toe with them and we have an outside chance of beating them, or it could go the other way, which unfortunately from a Dublin point of view did go the other way. Tip though don't bring any baggage into Croke Park in terms of in an inferiority complex. There's no chance they go zonal, is there?
No, I don't think so. I think what has worked for Tipperary so far, they'll continue that. And it will actually come down to, I'd say, you win your battle. You win your battle.
They've no other choice.
That's the thing.
You can't leave those players loose.
Yeah, so the couple of fires that you want put out, Tipperary will have the players to put those out. And maybe don't be even surprised if you see Mikey Breen maybe picking up Darragh Fitzgibbon if Darragh went to 11, and because Mikey Breen can play.
Yeah, they're versatile those.
They're versatile that way, and all you want him to do is stop. And Mikey's quick. Mikey's quick and he's strong, and he could stop that runner coming through the middle. But that's the thing with Tipperary. I don't think they need to go that way. If you go concentrating too much on the other team, well then you're going to just paralyze yourself really, and you're just watching what they're doing. So I hope Tip don't go down that route.
No, I don't, because again you had Dublin who probably marshalled Darragh Fitz, but then they completely left Tim Mahoney free and you saw the damage he done.
And I know probably Tip will obviously analyse the opposition and know where you can get at Cork, which we've seen maybe through the championship patches where you can get at them. So I think Tipperary are probably smart that way, and they'll just They'll trust themselves. But back to Dublin, I thought they were very brave, and I thought Niall O'Callaghan was very brave. I heard his interview, and even when you think of it, after 25 minutes, when the writing was on the wall, it was 3-5 to 5 points. They banged in a goal. Like,
kept responding.
They kept responding.
They did, and they missed 3 or 4 goal chances as well on top of that. Like,
they were never, look, Lightning probably wasn't going to strike twice after the Limerick game, and Cork's mindset was unbelievable. They were not going to be beaten by Dublin in a semi-final, and to hit 7-26, like I think Niall O'Callaghan said afterwards, it was one of the best all-around performances he has seen from a team. So look, Cork have to reach that again. I thought Tip were brilliant with their spirit and their grit, but they scored 20 points. Tip have been hitting 30 points all season. So I think there's a bit of room for improvement there, which is encouraging. Okay, they got the 4 goals, but 20 points.
Well, a lot of that's down to the start, isn't it? Like they had one score on the board after 11 minutes, I think it was.
Kilkenny hit 30 points.
Yeah.
You know, if Kilkenny had to put a goal or two with that, it was their game. So
having watched, obviously, Liam Cahill will have watched the Dublin game in detail probably 3 or 4 times over by the time they get to the final on Sunday week. What will he have taken from the score that Dublin managed to put on Cork, the goal chances they managed to create? What will he have taken from that will leave him feeling that we can really get at Cork? Yeah,
sure. I suppose he'll know that Cork go man for man. So the Cork 5, 6 and 7, that they mark their men. They don't play zonal. So if the Tipperary half-forward line shoves out in towards the middle of the field, Cork will go with them. If you play deep inside then, just get the ball in quick and fast and often, as I said already. And then you're dependent on John McGrath, who's in form, Jason Ford, who's in form, Darren McCarthy, who's very busy. And look, he'll be really motivated going into the final. So,
have you worried all over Darren McCarthy? Are the 2 red cards just happenstance? It's just an unfortunate coincidence that they've happened to come in the ways that they've come, or is there something more worrisome there?
I like Darren McCarthy as a player. He puts himself about. Actually, I was chatting to someone recently a couple of weeks ago, and my worry for him was that he'd get a bad shoulder injury, because when he goes to tackle, he goes to tackle. He's full on. He's exactly what you want as a coach or a manager. You want him putting in the tackles, and he's a very unselfish player. And I think his first 20 minutes he was popping that ball around, and so maybe he's not scoring freely as much as maybe people might be thinking he is, but
he wins a lot of good ball.
He wins a lot of ball. He does. As I said, he scurries around and he's onto breaks. And he's very unselfish. I even saw him in the 20 final near the end when Tip were winning. He could have hung on to the ball and stuck. He laid it off.
That's unheard of, really, at that age.
Is he hitting the freeze for the final, or is Ford?
It's an interesting question, yeah. I'd probably let Dara hit the freeze. And even if it's only Dara, you're coming out as far as the 45-yard line. Anything further out, if you feel that Jason is comfortable taking, let Jason take.
Yeah, or Owen Connolly's hammering them over from distance as well.
He is, there you go. You know, but Jason was unbelievable.
I think it even worked quite well. Yeah, as in when Jason stepped up, then it brought him up to a new level. Then
sometimes I see Darren McCarthy when he wins his own free, he's actually wrecked after it, because he does, as I said, he gets into the tackle. He's not afraid of the tackle, you know, and he's a hardy boy. So look, he'll know now after the 2 red cards all season. He'll know that he just needs to, I suppose, settle down in the tackle. Yeah.
He's still so young, like.
Yeah, exactly. He's only 19. And you know what? This might actually make him even a better tackler, because I'm sure something that he'll work on.
Small tweaks. Like
the last one was very lazy. Very lazy.
The slap on Owen Murphy's hand.
Call it, just kind of.
Yeah, it was a bit like
the hurling kind of. I know it looked in full motion. It looked, harmless, but in slow motion, you're kind of saying.
Yeah, but nowadays, and we've seen this in the last season, you can't do that.
No.
If you do that, if the hurling goes in any way
harmless,
loose, you're just leaving yourself wide open.
Exactly.
Is there a scenario there where the first session back after the Kilkenny game that Liam Cahill has pulled Darren McCarthy aside and he said, look, 2 things. 1, you're starting against Cork. And 2, Jason Ford is going to be hitting the freeze. I want you to spend the next week and a half concentrating on your own game. How can you improve your discipline? How you can improve your movement? Speak to fellas like Noel McGrath about what All-Ireland final day means and what the pitfalls of the build-up might entail for someone as young as you. Don't be worrying about free taking. Just go and be the best outfield player and best attacking player that you can be. Could that happen?
It could happen. Will it happen? I hope not. And I don't think it will. I'd say Liam will back him.
But it's not a question of not trusting him to be able to deliver on the freeze, but to try and free him up as much as possible.
Yeah, but sometimes a player that takes the freeze, that's how you get into it.
Okay. Was it like that for you?
Yeah, you just like that responsibility, and like you don't even overthink it. It's your job. It's one of your roles. That's what you do. And if they're not going well for you, someone else steps up to the mark. But like Darren McCarthy is probably one of the best free takers in Tipperary, and single-handedly probably got his club to Mevar to the county final last year. And okay, this is a bigger stage, but they were sticky enough frees as well. Like there was a couple of spills of rain, and they were awkward enough. Like, you know what I mean? But no, I'd back him now. I think he's been, from his frees, he's been exceptional all season. So I think he'll start on the frees.
So he's obviously one end of his career, and the other extreme is the likes of John McGrath, Jason Ford, Jake Morris to a lesser extent. But those three, the resurgence this year, Ashling, talk us through what you're seeing. Say John McGrath didn't start a championship match for 2 years.
He's been the most impressive in my opinion.
And he shows that you don't need outstanding speed to be a top level forward.
Yeah, he's just so intelligent when he gets the ball. Like, he knows exactly when to pull the trigger. And it was like, you said the last day they only had a point on the board, and the one chance he got, he took it. Yeah. And he didn't make any mistake. So
how does he find those pockets of space though? Because he hasn't got the acceleration to get away from a defender.
He just knows.
It's like he's makes himself invisible or something.
You just know he's just so long in the game, I guess. And again, you just have some players that are just highly intelligent in terms of their surroundings and where they're at on the pitch. And he knows getting the ball exactly where he wants to put it before he even puts it in the net. He doesn't even have to look. But
it's interesting you say that, Dave. Actually, I was just thinking about John McGrath now. I remember when the Gooch Cooper retired a couple of years ago. He kind of said, or did some of the guys that were marking him, saying that he used to move in circles.
Yeah, really?
And John McGrath's like a guy that's moving in circles. So he's on the loop. So he trusts that Jason Ford is going to control the ball. So he's actually coming out behind him then, and he's on the loop. And now he's actually even facing the goal when he gets the pop pass. It's his movement. I'd actually say, if you went up to the Davin end and watched John McGrath's movement, it would be a coaching session in itself. And then he trusts his own touch. He's some hands. So he's trusting his hands and his brain. Whereas other guys are dependent maybe on their legs. Like, and it's lovely to see it. 5-14, like that's hurler of the year material. It is. From a scoring
from a fella who,
average.
In fairness, like for the last few years, you would have thought, okay, he's probably going to finish up soon.
Yeah.
Do he went a bit quiet.
He surely must have been thinking that way as well.
He probably did, but you know what now?
But as you say, the resurgence with, the newer players and the freshness that Tip badly needed. Like,
I bet you if you spoke to John, he'd put it down to... He's probably had a lot of hard work done in the off-season.
Coming back from the cruciate as well. Was it cruciate or Achilles he had?
Achilles,
yeah.
He's had a couple of bad injuries. So probably he was out of sorts, we'll say, with his injuries for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Because he looks leaner this year, even in his legs. Now, he never carried weight, but he just looks a bit leaner. But I think it's just the confidence. And even, do you know what? You want John McGrath on your team. So I'm sure when players look... They love having John on because...
It's like seeing Noel coming in off the line. It's similar. It's the exact same, really, like with the two of them.
Yeah, and again, the two of them, very unselfish players.
Oh, yeah.
And Darren McCarthy's probably doing all the running and the movement. Sam O'Farrell is outside. So, like, sometimes younger players and fresh legs bring actually a massive work ethic. Because they're younger, they can get around. They can last the 60,
they have no fear,
minutes.
Like, they're full of confidence. They just want to get on that ball.
It's lovely to see him back in the way he is.
Oh, it's brilliant. I think everybody, even anyone non-Tip fans, are delighted to see someone like John McGrath.
It's great.
It's an Indian summer for him. He's just flowering all over again, which is amazing. I want to ask you about Noel, that you mentioned him there in a second, but the other guy similar to John McGrath who is just revitalised is Jason Ford. Like the score from the Hogan stand, practically standing in the front row of the Hogan stand there, and it made 1-5 for him on the day. Yeah. Like, that's him at his absolute best. And we haven't seen that for a while. Where is he getting this new lease of life from?
It's similar to John. I'd say he probably has the hard work done as well. And they've been probably managed differently this season in comparison to other seasons. So I'd say Liam Cahill's learnings over the last season or two have been exceptional. Maybe talking to S&C coaches, physios, doctors, whatever it might be, just to see, right, this is where these lads are at. Because none of those boys really took part much in the early stages of the league. They came towards the latter end of the league, and then I suppose you kind of know the tip 20 that's going to be used on match day, maybe the tip 21. So it's like they all know, right, I'm going to be playing. And to have that certainty is actually nice. If you're uncertain of your position on the team, will I be playing, will I not be playing, you're jumpy.
Of course.
And I think Tip have been like that the last 2 seasons.
Definitely.
And when a fresh manager comes in, maybe the word was he'll introduce all the younger players. And that was the thing in Tip. He'll introduce all the younger players now. And if you were hearing that and you were maybe 28, 29, 30, so what are you thinking? You're like, I'm goosed here.
Yeah, you can really see it. Like it.
Yeah, so I'd say that the confidence of it, the certainty
confidence is huge.
I'm playing, and like I wouldn't even bat an eyelid when Jason Ford scores that point because he does that regularly. He does that in training with his club. You know, he just wants to get the ball in his hand. And once he gets it in his hand, because his first half he was quiet-ish in the first half. But then his second half, like when...
And again, the freeze, as you said, I think when he switched on the freeze, it brought him into the game. And he...
Did, yeah. And they were all awkward freeze. There was none of them, like in front of the goal, 21, 30 yards out. Like
he would have said, like 6 months ago, it was touch and go whether he'd pop it. But to do it the way he did it the last year,
he's a ball player. He just looks so confident. You'd see it in his interviews afterwards. He's such a nice fella too. He's a humble guy. And,
very.
You know, like another girl, he's a ball player. That's what you want. And that's why Tipper just letting that ball in, and these boys have the hands to control it, and they're very unselfish as well to do those we mentioned.
I'm kind of conscious that there's probably Cork supporters listening to us or watching us on YouTube or thinking, there's an awful lot of tip talk here. Hang on, we're the Munster champions, we're the league champions, we're the All-Ireland finalists last year.
Well, just even on that, with Cork being the Munster champions, like, I have probably a different opinion on that game. I think they went home with the trophy, and that's what you do when you go to any of these games. But it was a draw. Extra time was a draw. I don't like penalties. I thought I didn't like that now. I really didn't like that. I think that's wrong for such a game. So now, if Pat Ryan is going to drill this into the guys, that look, you know, people are maybe saying that, look, we didn't win the Munster final, we went home with the trophy. So I'm sure they'll be highly motivated there with that. Like, and the old saying, you have to lose one to win one. And, you know, it's funny, like, if Cork do end up winning it, League, Munster and All-Ireland, I don't know, Limerick were the last team was supposed to do that. What year they would have done that? But that's not done regularly by a Munster team.
You guys did it in 01, didn't you?
In 01, yeah. So it's not done regularly by a Munster team. So, like,
I wonder, do they count it? I know it's the Munster.
Of course they bloody counted. Jesus.
You know, in your own mind, though, I suppose you would. A win is a win, no matter what way you do it.
Chalk down in history, roll of honour, Cork Munster champions.
Yeah.
But I, you know, it was a draw game. Penalties for me.
Okay, look, we can argue whether there should be scope in the calendar for a replay. We'll do that in our end of season review at some stage. But I kind of set that question up in a leading manner because I wanted to ask one more tip question before we maybe focus a little more on Cork. So if the Cork supporters can just bear with me for another 2 minutes. Noel McGrath walks into the starting 15 of pretty much any other elite county. But it's just a question of how do you use him. So clearly Liam Cahill, Ashling felt we are good enough to match Kilkenny for the first 45, 50 minutes. I want Noel McGrath on the pitch at the end. Yeah. When the game is in the melting pot, when the stakes are at their highest, when the pressure is at its greatest, and we're in a position where like one mistake or one moment of magic wins the game or loses the game, versus he's probably got 50 minutes in him and he might help us to set up the win, but then we lose him. So now that the opposition is no longer Kilkenny and it's Cork, if you're trying to get yourself into Liam Cahill's head on the Noel McGrath question, what way would you be thinking?
It's a tough one because I think he did it very well the last day. I think when he brought him in at the time he brought him in was perfect. Because as you said, when the game was in the melting pot,
on the came on for John after 50 minutes. Yeah,
and you needed a leader, you needed someone to stand up. But especially when the bodies are tired, the minds are tired. When you play Kilkenny, like it's always going to be a physical battle more than anything else. So, I thought the timing was perfect. Whether or not they should start him or bring him in the same way, I'm just not too sure. For me, I don't know. I don't know, would I want him there from the beginning?
Yeah. I'd say if it's not broken, don't fix it. And as I said earlier on, I think Liam kind of knows he's 20 that he's using. Yeah. And at what stage they come on, and 55 minutes on, you are making changes. It is early. Yeah. Yeah, but you are making changes. Even if a guy's having a good game, like you see John, we spoke about him, was playing well. Off he comes.
But if they're 10 points down, and you're reaching for Noel at that stage,
it's like, do you go out against Cork and not have somebody like Noel McGrath on the pitch and take the risk
with all the experience he brings on All Ireland final day?
Do you take that risk and then you come to a place where you're 10 points down and you're bringing in Noel McGrath? And it's a waste of time.
I know, but look, I'd say they're quick moving on that sideline. I'd say they won't let it go to 10 points down. I'd say if it's 3 or 4. There'd be changes, you know.
But what would you do with Noel?
What would I do with Noel? I'd leave him continue to do the role that he's doing. And you know, like if you're in that game and he comes on, that's the flip side. If you're in that game and he comes on,
we don't want to see him going off.
Oh no, the whole energy he gives the whole place, like, you know.
Because the rest of the players get a huge lift from seeing Noel put the helmet on, take the tracksuit top off, ready to rock.
Yeah. But look, Look at the Cork subs that are going to come on.
I know.
And Pat Ryan is going to use them as well. Like,
Seamus Harnedy, like, could be in the same bracket as Noel McGrath,
he'll probably start. I'd be starting Seamus Harnedy if he's right.
So for the uneducated amongst us, the two of you, a Cork forward line that admittedly scored, just couldn't score enough goals against Dublin, but without Seamus Harnedy and with him, what difference does that make to the dynamics of that Cork attack?
Just, I think, even from an aggression side of things, I think Seamus Harnedy brings that.
He's a real passionate player.
And, you know, he frees when he wins them nearly, or he gets the crowd going.
Yeah, he seems to do it in moments that are crucial for Cork.
And he wins hard frees.
He does.
So every time he wins the ball, there's only 2 or 3 lads taking him down, and he's nearly flung to the ground.
And same with his scores, they're never really handy. Like, they're always hard worked, or he finds pockets.
I think he's a real high work ethic player. So I think you mentioned earlier about the Cork supporters connecting with the team. There's the player that they connect with.
Very much so.
You know,
there seems to be real doubts as to whether he'll be back.
Well, if he is carrying a hamstring injury, I'd be starting him.
Okay.
So if he doesn't, if he gets injured, off he comes. But if he comes on and he niggles it, off he comes again. You're wasting 2 subs. So they're all the little tactical and strategic things that management have to work out now in the next while. But, like, you know, subs are crucial. They're crucial. Shane Kingston, which, you know, he'll have to see action. Conor Lehan maybe didn't come on last year's All Ireland. The chat afterwards, maybe he might have been a player. Robbie O'Flynn came on the last day. So when you talk about Tips 20, Cork's 20 is frightening, really, because it comes with massive surge of pace. Yeah. And energy, and their household names that are coming on as well.
Yeah, they got 3 points from the bench at the weekend. Obviously, it was a game that was pretty much done when they came in. But when you look at the spread of scores, Tim O'Mahony got 2-1, Fitzgibbon got 3, Dermot Healy got 1, Dalton got 5, Horgan 8, Connolly with 3-2, and Brian Hayes 2-1. It only needs 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 of them to spark on the day, Ashling, and Tipper in serious trouble. Yeah, again,
I think Cork's front 8 in particular are just so strong. And as we said last, like, you know, Dublin seem to marshal their blitz, but then you've Tim who's causing wreck. And it's the same for the inside forward line. If you tie down, well, again, I do think if you tie down Brian Hayes, it probably eliminates a lot of your problems in that full forward line. But then you've the likes of Alan Connolly, like, who's quite similar, and you've Patrick Horgan then. And, you know, outside of that, Shane Barrett, another top player, like Healy as well, mightn't start, but you've Seamus Harnedy then, who's a big issue as well. Dalton, as I said, coming back to pitch, like, has a strike of 80,
his form now is very good at the moment.
Imagine with a wind, like, another player you can't leave loose, because he'll shoot the lights out all day from back to pitch. So, as we referred to earlier, like, they'll just have to go man to man. And win the 50-50 battle. I just don't think they've any other option, really.
Look, it is frightening what Cork have, really, when you talk about the player. And they're in form. A lot of those players are in
the
form.
best I've ever seen, most of those players. Like, they're in the form of their lives at the moment, really. Like
the goals, like, when you think of it, 7, like, and they're goal hungry, like, you know what I mean? And
ruthless.
When you're like that, you know, like, it's hard to put 2 or 3 fires out. Absolutely. You know, you just want, like, the 6 forwards are probably more than likely not going to click on the day. There's always one that might be below par. And I think you've mentioned Shane Barrett already. Now, he has caused Tipperary bother, and he was sent off against Clare in the first match. So he missed the Tip Cork Munster Championship match down below in Park Keefe. So sometimes, you know, Tip might have got a handle on him that day to see who might be a guy to mark him. So he's a guy that will take a bit of watching, because his movement is unbelievable as well, and he can score freely. And when he cuts through that middle from the half forward line, he creates goal chances.
He does, yeah. His speed is unmatched, really.
Is it a Cork team now, Owen, that you would trust to show up?
I would.
That, like, come what may, whatever about what Tip bring, they're going to face a Cork team that are going to deliver an 8 or 9 out of 10 performance.
Yeah, definitely. I do believe that. Yeah. Just the experience of being there, and they're playing excellently, and even going down to the likes of the Gaelic grounds, we'll say, and Munster final, and compete.
Going, like,
it is some going and compete. Because, like, when I heard that was in the Gaelic grounds, I said,
it's not a nice place.
Big advantage, like, Limerick here.
Massive.
You know, so to do what they done that day, you know, they have had big wins, and even go back 12 months to be more or less out of the championship, and to say, right, we've Limerick coming to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and to actually get a 328 to 326
I think
win.
that has actually changed Cork completely, is the challenges that they've had in the last 2 seasons, like this year and last
I'd
year.
earmark that game, obviously, for Cork, but I'd also earmark the Tip Clare game for Tip, down below in Cusack Park, Ennis. Tip were 12 points up, Clare clawed it back to a level game, and Tip just kicked on.
Yeah.
And since then, there's been a change in their mentality. You can see it, that the belief to win games. That's the thing. Seeing out
They're
games.
the moments.
You can talk about that all you want, and every psychology you can get in. Seeing out close games.
Absolutely.
You have to go through it.
And Tip have that advantage, going in. Like that was a game you would have thought even 5 minutes before full time, maybe Kilkenny were going to see it out, and I think the way Tipperary came back and actually won it,
it's nice to be going in with that in the locker,
that's an advantage.
But if Cork do deliver that 9 out of 10 performance, has there been a performance that Tipperary have delivered in the last 2 years that suggests that they have it in them to beat a Cork team in that form?
For me, it will be the Tip Limerick game this year in Thurles, but that's a different game.
A Limerick team, though, that ultimately never caught fire. Like, this is Cork now flying.
Yeah.
Best team in the country.
Yeah.
Have Tip showed
Tip's
us
physicality
that they can beat them?
Was unbelievable to match Limerick's, and they matched it with Hurling then as well. But Cork bring a different style of play. So it's going to come down to hurling. It's going to be a shootout for me. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think each team will hit the 30 points plus. I really do believe it because that's how flamboyant they're playing at the moment. And I just find with the Tip forwards, every time it goes in, they're scoring freely. Cork are probably scoring more freely for obvious reasons. You know what I mean?
You need to be just physical, aggressive, tight. With Cork,
you do, but
you can't give them an inch.
But I've been in many dressing rooms where we spoke about that. You can't
I know.
give them an inch. And it's a shootout.
Yeah.
But the Tip Cork games take on those kind of, whereas Kilkenny seem to be able to shut down maybe a Cork team that's moving the way they can move. So Tipperary, it'll be interesting to see if Tipperary do anything with their midfielders, maybe sitting back a small bit, just to tighten up that area. And that sounds great. But then you have the 2 Cork midfielders could be flying around popping scores.
And the way they
can
move
score
and
from
they
70,
overlap.
80 yards.
They can. Yeah.
So if you curtail Cork scoring goals, can they hit you for 30 or 31 points? Most definitely, including Decky Dalton, Dara Fitz, Tim O'Mahony, all these guys.
I've got one question each left for you before we get into predictions, which I'm sure our viewers and listeners probably have some inkling as to what way the predictions are going to go. But Ashling, if Patrick Horgan gets his Celtic cross, what will that mean? Obviously, it would mean the world to him, but to his family, to to Glen Rovers, to Cork hurling and GA fans in general, I think to hurling lovers all over the country. I remember going into the 2017 final, either the Brick or Joe were going to win the All-Ireland, and it was going to crown a glorious career for one of them. It went Joe's way on the day, obviously. There really is only one in that situation coming to this game. Maybe you could argue that Seamus Harnedy is in sort of a similar boat, but Patrick Horgan or Conor Lahan as well, if Horgan wins his All-Ireland, because there's no question, he is the greatest hurler never to win an All-Ireland.
Yeah.
What would it mean?
Sure, it would just be incredible. I'd say, sure, the man would die happy, with that one. And it's funny because even going back a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago, you never would have thought that Cork could be in the position they're in now. And I'd say even Patrick Horgan probably would have had the same doubts. So that's why, again, I think they're just, it's hard to look past them going into this final. And I'm sure Eoin would say the same about Tip, but the opportunity that's there for the likes of Patrick Horgan, they're going to leave everything they have on that pitch. It's not going to be a case where they turned up against Clare last year and kind of there were still doubts and still a bit of, nerves and all that. I just think I can't see the likes of Patrick Horgan and even the rest of the team, the rest of the county. Even for Pat Ryan, he's had a very tough year. I think when you just combine all those factors, what it would do for the county in general, in GA and hurling as a whole in Cork, would be incredible. It would. If
you're trying to add up your fixes in the build up to the final, dig into the archives, pick out the Patrick Horgan episode. We had him in. It was after they were beaten by Clare in the All-Ireland last year, talking about how winning the All-Ireland wouldn't, whether they did or didn't, would never define him as a person and as a hurler. Well,
I'd say he's changed his mind.
He might, he might just if they win this game on Sunday. And we said at the top of the show, it's the first time Tip and Cork have met in the All-Ireland. You obviously had your run-ins with them as a player in Munster like, what's the... You were on Joe Malloy's show a couple of weeks ago where Tipper had been talked about as the most hated county in the country because they border more counties than anybody else. So everyone has a bone to pick with them.
Is that the reason, really?
Yeah. We'll say that's the reason. But specifically the Tip Cork rivalry, what does that bring to you in your mind from your memories?
For me, that's what I grew up on. 1991 Munster final replay then in Thurles. Tipperary, I suppose, great comeback. There was something like 8 points down, came back to win it, went on to win the All-Ireland that year then. And then there was a barren spell until the Munster final in 2000. And I was kind of just drafted into the panel around that time, and I remember the excitement about it. Cork won that one, and again, now they were All-Ireland champions at the time, and Awfully beat in the semi-final. And then we had to wait for 06, and that's when I was really involved in the team then, and Babs was the manager, and the build-up to that match was amazing. Like, I remember we'd have the TV, remember in training, you'd be watching back the 1991 Munster final, was just playing in the background, just Babs, I say, trying to let the players get a sense of what this means. And, you know, it was a massive fixture on the calendar. We lost that. Again, Cork went on to win the All-Ireland. And I suppose one of the highlights in my career too was down in Killarney, actually, in 04, playing Cork in the qualifier knockout. Again, Cork have been beaten the Munster final by Waterford. They were a small bit shaky. And they played like that, actually, for about 50 minutes. Until Darren McCarthy got a goal, which put him about 5 points, and then they grew in confidence again. So sometimes the Cork probably can be hard on their team too when the expectation levels are so high.
Massive.
And they're not performing, even if it's early in the game.
Enemy if you're not going the right way.
Yeah, so
they're your best friend on the flip side.
Yeah, that match in Killarney was something special. Like, I know we lost, and you hate losing, but like to play Cork and Killarney brought you back to the 87 Munster final. But look, we haven't probably seen enough of Tip Cork in any Munster finals, you know, and here we are landing in an All-Ireland final now. So it is something that will jog the memory, and back it's even when you were younger, growing up on these games and all the past players, and you know, it's something that's going to be interesting.
So predictions time. With your heart, obviously you're going for Tip.
You'd have to be, yeah.
If you think about the game logically, and from an analytical point of view, and as a coach, which you are, is it using your head? Is it still Tip?
If it goes to a shootout, Cork are going to be very hard to beat. If they hit that 9 out of 10 performance that you've mentioned about, Dave, it's going to be very, very hard. But if Tip can stop them scoring the goals, they can stop them hitting 3-4 goals, and that's what has crippled Tipperary in this fixture this season, in the league final, in the Munster Championship. It's been the goals. 3 in the league final, shipped 4 in the Munster Championship. That's 7 goals. And I thought Tip the last day against Kilkenny, it looked like they were going to die in their boots not to concede a goal. It's like they just all scrambled back defence. It was like right, lads, we are not conceding goals once we get to Croke Park. Maybe we'll get into an All-Ireland final in mind, and even if you got there, you knew who the opposition was going to be. So it looks like they have some work done on that. But look, that's easier said than done. Look, I'm really hoping for a shootout, for an absolute game that goes twos and fro's.
This could be one for the ages. I think you're thinking that way, are you?
I am.
This will be one of the all-time great finals.
I am thinking that way. And if it goes like that, no better team than Tipperary to get a sniff of it near the end. And probably just, if they rob an All-Ireland final, that could be it. But, you know, I'd hate for maybe to peter out the way the last 2 games have went in the league and the Munster Championship, but I just don't think this time I can see Tipperary really performing. But if Cork perform to their 9 out of 10 that we mentioned, it's going to be very hard. Like, and I don't think anyone at this stage would begrudge Cork if they did win. I know people are saying Tipperary, it's been a massive year, which it has, to get where they've got to. But as I said, there is players in that dressing room that won't be thinking like that. So Tip are quiet. They will be quiet. Yeah, I'd give them a chance, but it is a hard ask.
20 years is a long time, Ash.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. But they are the best team in the country. They're the Munster champions. They're the league champions. I'm sure if you both go with your heart and your head, you're only going one way.
Yeah, and again, I agree with Eoin, though. I actually think it would take Cork to be off it and Tipperary to give a 9 out of 10 performance. I can definitely see Tipperary, you know, up there. But again, if Cork are at their best, like, it's going to be extremely hard to stop them. Probably again nailing down their full forward line and exposing around the full back line, which Tip, you know, have absolutely every right to do. I think that could be key for Tip. But again, if Cork are at their best, like, it's very hard to watch past them. And look, it is 20 years is a long time. I'm sure their ears are wrecked from listening to it, but at the same time, I think their focus is more so on, you know, recent years and what they've worked on. And since Pat Ryan came in, I think that's kind of the work that they're looking back on, thinking like this would be an awful waste if we come up here to Croke Park and don't perform. And you can kind of see that in their performances, like, especially, I'll go back again to Limerick day one, and they got hammered, and then the way they approached the Munster final was just incredible. And at that, there was probably still, you know, a fraction off in that game, I feel, but yeah, you can just see it in them. They're extremely confident at the moment. They believe in everything that they're doing, and you can see that belief both on the sideline and on the pitch. So,
and on the, I think it's just this is one of the most physically big Cork teams
100%
that we've seen in a long time. So their power and
their
pace, their conditioning, like
they remind me of the Limerick, like, go back 3 years.
They probably tug out a bigger team than even Tipperary, like, but they're such big physical, and they have a big presence in that forward line, and you can't beat that. Like, even for smaller players, you feed off that, because there's always a chance of a breaking ball. So you're always making that extra run because you know there is a chance. And when you have that in the full forward line, even the half forward line,
and out the
cutting
pitch,
in, like, they always have a chance.
They're gone extremely aggressive as well in how they tackle, and that's something that they've always had speed, but that aggression and confidence is something that they've been missing for a long time. So yeah, as you said, their physicality has really brought them on. I think it's been the game changer, really. Like, so for me, if Cork are at their best, it's a Cork win.
There you go. One of you is going to be very happy on Sunday, and one of you is going to be devastated. There you have it. That's our All Ireland hurling final preview here in the Square Ball. Thanks so much to Eoin, who's come back into us for the second time this season. Ashling, we may not see you again for season 2 of the William Hill Square Ball podcast. So for all of your efforts this year, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you in the co-host chair, and the very best of luck for the rest of the season for the Cork Camogie team, who are chasing the 3 in a row. So the semi-finals to the Camogie Championship are coming up in a couple of weeks' time. They'll be well worth a watch. Whatever you have to think or say on what the two guys have been saying about their thoughts on this final, do get in touch with us. Whether it's on Spotify, leave us a few comments. Tell us if you agree with Eoin or with Ashling, or maybe any elements to the final and the build-up that we haven't touched on that you think could be crucial to whatever way Lee McCarthy is going to be going when he exits Croke Park in a few days' time. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube as well, at the Square Ball Pod. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well, at William Hill Ireland. Is going to be an epic end to what's been a brilliant hurling championship. We are going to be bringing you our football championship final preview as well in the coming days, so stay tuned for that. And for all of the other episodes where we've had some amazing guests, dip back into the archive, listen to Owen's episode, listen to Ashling's episode, and so many other hurling episodes in particular as well. The likes of Joe Canning, the likes of Tommy Welsh. I should have written them down. I meant to write them down. Ashling, who else have we had this season? From Patrick Horgan, who we had last year.
Jimmy Barry Murphy.
Cyril Farrell. Brilliant. Paul Flynn. They're all in there. So my thanks to the two guys. Thanks to you for listening and for watching, and we'll be back with you again very soon.